What's happening, YouTube? Owen here from Dark Entertainment, the place to hear tales from Wales and afar. If you're into creepy stories donated to us by people like yourselves, then feel free to like and subscribe, and hit that bell icon. Now, let's get into the video. A while back now, my partner and I went to visit her family in Carmarthen. Whilst we were there, we decided to go and tick off a few of the local castles and stately homes. We managed to see 4 in one day. These included Aberglasney House, Drysloin, Dinever, and Newton House. With the castles, I was unable to find anything in the way of stories, since they were unmanned sites. Similarly, Aberglasney House wasn't easy to get stories on, since many of the staff weren't in the main building for long periods of time, or worked in the outbuildings. They did tell me that when the house was functioning as a stately home, 4 maids died in their sleep at the same time, and that the ghost of one of them is supposedly seen around the property. But there was no one to give me anything of substance, so I decided not to do a video on it. However, the next property we went to did have several unusual tales. Welcome to Newton House. Newton House was constructed in the mid-17th century by Edward Rice, and remained in the family until 1974, upon which point it was sold, but fell into disrepair. Side note, bear with me here, I had all the stories recorded on my phone as voice recordings, including my own encounter, which I'll tell you at the end. Unfortunately, my phone decided to pack it in, and I've lost it all. I'm sure you would have loved to have heard me panic and run away in real time. We arrived late in the day with only a couple of hours left before they closed, and went for a wander around the house to learn about this fascinating building. I was particularly interested in the hole in the floor with a plexiglass window in it. Through the window, the skeletal remains of a cat were visible. Now, having had an ex with 3 cats who used to run riot in the night, and bite the top of my head because they didn't want me sleeping in their place, I can honestly say that I didn't shed a tear over this bloody animal. However, the reason for the cat being there was very interesting. The custom of the dried cat is common in many stately houses. In most cases, burial occurs post-mortem. One can only imagine the hell that would be unleashed if a builder tried it with a live cat. The idea is the cat would serve as a protector of the house against evil spirits who would wish harm against the occupants of the household. It was originally thought that when a person died, their soul would pass on by passing through the air from the east to west. By placing the remains of a belligerent animal such as a cat in the east wall of the house, any spirit wishing to harm would attach itself to the corpse and leave the house alone. An interesting concept, but it appears not to work when the spirits come from inside the house. Once we'd finished wandering around the property, I approached one of the staff and asked to speak to them about ghostly occurrences that they've experienced. At this point, my partner gave me a look that said, "Here we go, dickhead's off again," before quietly informing me that she'll be outside exploring the grounds. Like a child being left at a creche, I toddled off with the National Trust guide. She proceeded to tell me several stories about the property and some creepy events that occurred to her and a colleague. First, we entered the drawing room, where originally there were chairs lining the walls where, after parties, the ladies would have withdrawn to discuss the more sophisticated topics, whilst the men smoked and drank and talked about the type of bullshit that men talk about. Sport, hunting, how many horse speed their carriage has. Ignore me, I'm going off on a tangent. Anyway, when the women would meet up in this room, there would naturally have been a hierarchy to who sat where. The senior figures would have been sat closest to the fire. Now this leads me on to our first spirit. In the past, the drawing room was set out by staff as it would have been at the turn of the century or the late 1800s. Visitors to the property have stated that when they sit in the chair closest to the fireplace, they have felt the sensation that if they do not get out of the chair, something will harm them. This only occurs in one particular area of the room. Staff believe that this is possibly Lady Mary de Cardinal, the Countess Talbot, upset that a commoner would dare to sit in her seat. From this room, we come to the main staircase. Several entities have been spotted on these Gothic stairs. On the stairs leading to the third floor, which is out of bounds to the general public, a shadow, which many believe to either be the Countess Talbot again, or perhaps the mother of Walter Rice, the 7th Baron of Deneva, Selina Lascelles, who passed away in 1889. But in my opinion, the more unnerving story is found at the bottom of the stairs, on the first turn. Childlike arms and the sound of either a baby crying or laughing can be seen extending through the banister. They disappear as soon as they are seen. Still on the ground floor, passing through the stairwell, we come to a room which has been converted into a makeshift library for traded books. In this room, there is a beautiful painting of Walter Rice, the 7th Baron of Deneva. Walter has been seen on many occasions wandering both in and outside the property at various times of the day. He appears to be deep in thought, and many feel that he is keeping an eye on the property. But we'll return to this room a bit later. Heading to the top of the stairs, the guide allowed me access to the top floor. She showed me several rooms and told me several stories in each. But as previously stated, I've lost the recording of them and I can't remember them. Once again, I apologize. However, my adult brain did remember one of them. One evening, as the staff were closing up for the day, my guide and a colleague of hers were up in the upstairs room that you see on screen now. It was dark and the lights were on, but there was a beam of moonlight filtering through the window. Both were cleaning the room when suddenly the door slammed shut, making them both jump. The lights flickered and turned off, and all they were left with was a darkened room with that gleaming light coming through the window. They took it in turns trying to open the door, but couldn't. In her words, this was strange, since the colleague she was with tends to the cattle that they have on site, and was very strong. As they wrestled with the door, they heard the jingling of keys. They both turned and watched in horror as, glinting in the moonlight, the bunch of keys that they had sitting on the table very slowly lifted and flipped themselves over. At this point, they both ran to the other side of the room and out down the servants' staircase. They then returned the next day to find the door unlocked and swinging freely as though nothing had happened. At this point, my guide informed me that she would have to head back down, since there had been a talk in one of the rooms for a historical society, and they were just handing out the drinks. As we reached the main foyer, where the society guests were milling around and drinking Prosecco, one of the other staff approached and asked if she had told me about the walking stick. She'd forgotten and excitedly pulled out her phone. They told me that they had been closing up for the night and were down in the basement. In the furthest rooms of the basement is the butler's pantry. They were in there checking the doors and windows when they heard the sound of scraping coming from somewhere. In the corner of her eye, she saw something move. They turned to see a walking stick hanging on a coat peg. It was swinging wildly back and forth with nothing to push it. All the doors and windows were locked with no breeze, and this was swinging as though someone was pushing it in anger. She quickly pulled out her phone and filmed a short video before fleeing. I saw the video and asked her to send it to me, but unfortunately it never came through, possibly because it was too large a file. But in my infinite wisdom, decided that I'd go and have a look for the walking stick as well. This was my first mistake. She told me to enter the first room on the right, where the talk had taken place, and go down the stairs. Now for this part of the video, I'll reintroduce the Moron song, composed by my pal, Mr. Lee Timothy, since it so accurately represents how much of a plum I was, wandering around the house like a lost sheep. And just because it's me, I will grace you with some spectacular paint 3D works of art. Like Stevie Wonder looking for his favourite socks, I could not find a stairwell anywhere. I perhaps thought it might be in the next room. Nope. Passing into the main stairwell, I still couldn't find it. I then entered into the library that I mentioned earlier. It was in here that I decided to look into one of the corner doors. It was a tiny store cupboard with shelves around the outside and a tiny window and a wheelchair that was open in the centre of it. As I peered in on my never-ending quest for these magical stairs, the wheelchair slammed shut in front of my eyes. Now, it doesn't sound that scary, but when you know how a wheelchair works, it becomes a lot more freaky. As you can see from the video on screen now, these types of wheelchairs can only close if someone grabs the seat of the chair and pulls it up sharply. Like a cartoon character, I ran split arse out of the room and back into the main foyer. The staff turned and exclaimed that I looked ghastly. I explained what happened, and they didn't seem surprised. So unsurprised that, ignoring the fact that I was on my way to an early grave, she led me to the bloody stairs and directed me where to see the bloody walking stick. The last thing on my mind was seeing the damn thing at this point. My mind was racing and playing tricks on me, and as I walked through the basement, I was startled by a visitor who happened to be down there at the same time, causing me to squeal like a 5-year-old girl. After apologising, I quickly found the walking stick, took my photo, and scarpered out of there with my tail between my legs, thanking them as I legged it out the door. I met up with my girlfriend, who promptly laughed in my face and told me, "If you play in haunted houses, what do you expect?" Translated, if you play with feathers, you get your arse tickled. She's all heart. Anyway, that's all from us here at Dark Entertainment. We hope you've enjoyed the episode. I will be doing a talk by Land of Cathedral on the 20th of October. If you are interested, please leave me a comment on either the video or on one of our social media sites mentioned here. And remember, stay dark, stay creepy, and always laugh. Ta-ta!